The subsidies are going to be phased out, they're going away. This was anticipated. What does it mean for the business in the meantime?
Look, I think that was anticipated. I think the bigger focus here is it's all about autonomous. I mean, when I look at 90% of the future value is ultimately going to be about autonomous robotics, and that's the future. It all comes down to when Trump came in, the goal was that this is going to be a fast-tracked, an autonomous roadmap in terms of a framework from a federal perspective. So I think the worry and the reason the stock was down yesterday is that still there? In other words, does this situation start to settle? I believe it does. But the last thing, as a Tesla shareholder or a Tesla bull, that you want to see is Musk just putting himself more and more into that political theater, because there's really no upside from a Tesla perspective.
Don't you have to push back your expectation for any kind of regulatory framework that would be beneficial to Tesla in the near term to get the robotaxi program off the ground? Yeah,
it's a great question. Look, it all comes down to like China, because look, this is an arms race going on. So Trump knows Waymo. Look, Waymo has obviously been very successful, but still 5 cities, very expensive cars. The horse in the race is going to be Tesla in terms of to scale with what China is doing. So it comes down to, in this U.S.-China battle, Tesla, just like NVIDIA, is actually a chip on the table. So I do believe that you will actually continue to see this fast track despite this sort of back and forth that we're seeing. Look, it's essentially like a junior high situation, right? They went from BFFs, now sort of enemies, but I view this as something where for Tesla, it's going to be a near-term overhang that I do think dissipates.
Are investors pushing back more? Because this has been a faith-based stock for a long time. Suddenly we're getting deliveries that still don't matter, at least in your eyes or a lot of people's eyes, if you believe this really is a robo-taxi story. At what point do people say, really? We're not seeing it with the shares down 25% so far this year. And frankly, they're in an industry that is under a secular challenge at a time of a lot of potential headwinds and a lot of political drama.
Yeah, look, I think sentiment is as negative as I've seen it in a few years relative to especially the actual business. Deliveries, you'll get one this morning that's definitely going to be a pretty soft delivery number. But it does come down to, in terms of the prove-it situation, does robotaxi scale? I believe it's 2025 cities next year. You start to see that in terms of geofence within Austin, that expands. They go to more and more cities. Then investors are like, okay, as an AI play, when you think about physical AI, NVIDIA and Tesla, to me, are the best pure play physical AI plays. But it's proving it. And now look, just like if you look at Apple and Tesla, they're in the penalty box from an investor. If you think about even Mag 7, where on the other side, of course, you got Godfather of AI Jensen, you got Redmond and Nadella, you have Meta and Zuck. So there's a separation going on. Apple and Tesla is right here in that penalty box.
I want to come back to when you said at the start, to John's opening line about how you think Musk and Trump both need each other. Doesn't Musk need Trump a lot more?
Of course. I mean, we've said that. It goes back
So why does he keep poking the bear? Does that not unnerve investors?
Of course it does. Look, the last thing you want to see is him poking the bear. It comes down to, like, there's nothing good going to come down in terms of him doing it. And I think that's why every time he does that, it just creates this cycle in terms of Trump, going back. And it's the last thing you want to see, because as we've talked about a lot on the show, obviously took huge steps back from Doge, Trump administration, took on a life of its own, but now he keeps shots across the bow. It's not what you want to see.